This is WFYI News Now. It's October 23rd, and I'm Abriana Herron. Today's show is a little different than usual. The 2024 general election is less than 2 weeks away, and public media newsrooms across the state are working hard to get you ready. Instead of our usual rundown of daily news stories, today we're bringing you 3 interviews, all from Indiana Public Broadcasting State House reporter Brandon Smith, with candidates running for governor in Indiana. First up, Republican candidate Mike Braun.
I want to start by talking about the thing that seems to be on a lot of Hoosiers' minds, which is property taxes. You, of course, have released a property tax plan that would see significant reductions in people's bills. But the consequence of that is also that it would potentially drain resources from schools, libraries, fire and police departments. Can we promise Hoosiers property tax relief without costing local government?
So the bill is mostly about the feature of limiting increases in the future, because that's the complaint that everybody had, is their bills got skewed by things that happened federally that created inflation. Since that was skewed most unreasonably, and homes were, it was just to reset it where it was pre-COVID. And then going forward, it doesn't impact revenue in the sense that it puts a lid on it. It's a template that you're going to have to get at least half of the legislators to agree with.
One of the biggest budget issues the state is going to be grappling with is the Medicaid program. Is there any way to rein in Medicaid spending without cutting services that some Hoosiers are getting already?
The proudest thing I've done in the real world of running a business was when I fixed healthcare with no consultant or advice, rebuild the system on prevention and wellness, give your employees the tools to do it, make them healthcare shoppers and consumers on your scratches and dents, minor stuff, protect them on catastrophic risk from an injury or an illness. It did all of that, cut costs by over 50%. We've not had a premium increase now in 16 years. People think that can't be true. It can be if you're entrepreneurial, you take a little risk. I want to weave that into our own state government's healthcare policies.
An exponential part of education funding, of the education budget, has been towards private schools through the school voucher program. Indiana has near universal voucher eligibility at this point. Would you want to see that expanded? And do we need to have some sort of greater academic accountability standards for those private schools that accept public dollars?
Definitely the latter, and academic standards and accountability for the vast public school system, I think, still has not been fleshed out in a way that it needs to be. I like choice, and I think parents ought to be in the driver's seat, not established education, and students need to have all those options as they navigate from K through 12 so that they're prepared with the right choice of what to do once they're out of high school.
So you think get rid of the income limits on that program entirely?
I'm going to look at what the sweet spot is for maybe enhancing some of the stuff that's worked, but certainly looking for accountability, that you're not getting a stipend from the government and you're not performing.
Is Indiana in the right spot on abortion rights?
Republicans finally kind of got what they wanted to come back to the states, and it did get vetted. It got passed by a supermajority. I think Indiana is a pro-life state. I don't think a legislator has lost his or her job on account of it. And if it's not right, you'd have to bring it back up. I think you make an issue out of that when you're maybe afraid to talk about some of the other issues that I think especially national Democrats are weak on. And my question to Jennifer McCormick would be, where do you stack up as a Hoosier Democrat on all the big issues that Democrats espouse above and beyond abortion?
Next, Democrat gubernatorial candidate Jennifer McCormick.
I want to start with an issue that seems to be on the top of mind for so many Hoosiers, which is their property tax bills. Your approach looks at tax relief, but not necessarily tinkering too much with the property tax system itself. Why did you decide to go that route?
Yeah, so first of all, we tried to take an approach that was bipartisan. So we took some language that had been introduced by Senator Holdman, who I have great respect for. He's Republican. We also took language from Senator Godora, who's a Democrat. And they had really good language with existing fiscals to do it the way we're doing it, looking at it through a different lens, looking at it more through that state lens versus the local, because we were very concerned about the local level funding. So when you've got schools and libraries and police and fire and parks and the list goes on that are being funded through that, and I talked to enough local leaders, they were like, we can't sustain that. So we knew we wanted to give some property tax relief, but also not hammer the local levels.
Is there any way to rein in the state's Medicaid spending without cutting services that people are already receiving? No. And what's scary about that, from what I have learned and what I've been told, that the last budget cycle there was just such a shortfall in the allocation that whether it was miscommunication, mishandling. I don't want to. Regardless of the reason why, there was a big lack of dollars there that was needed in that allocation. And then you have over the expenditure of what went up, and you've got the perfect storm for what happened. And so someone needs to be held accountable for such a huge error, because it has impacted services. And some of the changes that have also been made have been extremely hard on families, in addition to being on long waiting lists that are going to take years to address the needs of. It's a financial piece of it, it's a workforce need of it, it's a red tape problem. The Medicaid fix is going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to be very expensive. But like you mentioned, there are a lot of big ticket items that are going to be gobbling up that budget quickly. We've seen Mike Braun now saying he wants to make the school choice voucher program universal. Is that the right move for Indiana? And if not, as governor, what realistically can you do when it comes to the voucher program?
As we expand that program, the data shows us it's clearly kids who have already gone to private schools. We're just now funding it. They come from typically a suburban, white, wealthier family. And so when we look at the intent of the program versus what is happening with the program, that gives us pause as well. It's not about getting kids who are at risk out of poor performing schools, or getting kids who went to public schools and it just didn't fit, giving them a different choice. That's not what this is about. It's very interesting how that program is working, but we need to pump the brakes on school choice. We could capture hundreds of millions of dollars a year. The last biennium was very expensive, but in totality, you're looking at $1.6 billion. We cannot sustain that.
You've made women's reproductive rights, the state abortion ban, a central theme. As governor, what can you realistically do to address the concerns that many Hoosiers have about how far that ban has gone?
The fact of the matter is, this election's about, we're either going to have a governor who trusts women or who does not. I'm the only candidate who has been pregnant, and I've given a live birth, and I understand firsthand the complexities of pregnancy. And I don't dismiss, it is a complex issue that people have their own opinions, their own faith beliefs about it, their families have their own opinions, but it is so complex and such a massive decision. That's why we have to trust women, we have to trust healthcare providers, because there is no perfect situation to that complex issue. We need to have choices.
And here's Brandon's interview with Libertarian candidate for Indiana governor, Donald Rainwater.
I want to start with something that seems to be on a lot of Hoosiers' minds, and it's certainly been a major issue in the campaigns so far, which is property taxes. How do you address people's property tax bills without struggling or hitting local governments in a way that they're going to struggle in their budgets?
So when somebody says to me, well, your property tax plan is going to reduce the budgets for fire and police, I'm going to say no. The local government's already decided to do that with tax increment financing. What my proposal forces local governments to do is to decide, are we going to fund the necessary functions of local government and take care of the people with the tax dollars that the people are paying, or are we going to continue to give it to economic development, which should be private development, not private development funded with taxpayer dollars?
one of the most growing parts of Indiana's education budget is private school vouchers. We have a near universal program now. Only the very uppermost income limits are barred from getting those dollars. Would you like to see that program expanded further to basically be universal, get rid of the income limits?
I am 100% supportive of not only universal school choice as it's currently defined, but I believe that we need universal school choice that allows parents to find any school option that provides the right environment to maximize that child's positive outcomes, whether it's state accredited or not. I believe we need to decentralize education in the state of Indiana.
So lawmakers are looking ways to curb the exponentially growing cost of Medicaid for the state of Indiana. Is there any way to rein in those costs without cutting services to Hoosiers?
The services that have been promised to Hoosier citizens, the state government made the promise, they need to keep it. We have a $1 billion accounting error, but we also have in the last budget about $1 billion of new budget allocation to the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. But to tell these people, well, we made a budget mistake, so we're going to have to cancel this program, but it's okay because the IEDC is going to bring in 1,000 new high-paying tech jobs that you won't be able to do because you've got to stay at home with your child. Morally and ethically reprehensible to me.
We have Indiana's near total abortion ban. As governor, would you like to see that change? Do you think Indiana's abortion rights are in the correct place?
The current law needs to go through any and all legal challenges that may need to go through the court system, and that the state legislature should listen to the people, and if there are adjustments that need to be made, they should make them. I'm a pro-life libertarian, but I don't believe that one person should make that decision as to what changes should be made within that particular legislation. I believe that that is a very delicate issue, and I'm really tired of politicians using it to get votes.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. You can find these interviews plus a full voter guide with information and interviews with many more candidates running for office in Central Indiana on our website at WFYI.org. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.